On today's show, Ja Morant has returned for the Memphis Grizzlies after a 25-game suspension and leading them to a 3-0 record in his first week back. How has Ja looked since stepping back onto the basketball court? What are some of the things that Ja Morant brings to the table that don't show up in the box score? And which of Ja's teammates benefits the most from his return? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Grizzlies, Joe Mullinax. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Grizzlies, which is absolutely something you're going to want to be doing now that Ja Morant has returned for Memphis. The Memphis Grizzlies 3-0 since Ja Morant's return after his 25-game suspension. Wins over the Pelicans, the Pacers, and most recently over the weekend, the Atlanta Hawks. Joe, walk us through just how has Ja looked since stepping back on the court for this Grizzlies team?
Like he hasn't missed a beat, right? And it's wild, Jackson, how many people forgot. All it took was 25 games for people to just, lose out of their minds the reality of Ja Morant being one of the top 10 to 15 players in the National Basketball Association. Oh, well, surely Ja's not going to have that big of an impact. Was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard when it was said by numerous people. And it remains dumb today as we sit here and watch this Grizzlies team go 3-0 since Ja Morant's return. Jackson, I don't want to go too fourth wall breaking here. You and I, we get money to talk about basketball. So people want us to analyze things, break down film, look at the numbers. We're doing digging deep dives. We have a lot of things that we do to build our audiences, all this sort of, sometimes it's a really freaking simple game. When you have a dude who's super fast and can handle the basketball and can control his body in such a way that he can pass out of these very quick dribble penetration movements to open players, your offense is going to score more points. And when that happens, you usually win more basketball games. Sometimes this job is easy. Obviously it's easy if I can do it. I don't want to speak for you, Jackson, but it shouldn't have taken rocket science for us to be able to understand and comprehend why the Memphis Grizzlies are all of a sudden better. It's because one of the best basketball players on the planet is back in the lineup, and he has been able to be with the team the entire time. That's the reason why he has to leave, or he had to leave 2 hours before games. That was the nature of the suspension, but he was traveling with the team. He was practicing with the team over the last 2 weeks. He's been playing and getting reps with the twos and the ones. He just got inserted in and has been a bull in a china shop, dominating opposing defenses, creating opportunities for others, taking attention away from Desmond, Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr., and they continue to play well. It's almost like the Memphis Grizzlies got their best player back, and now they're playing better. Who'd have thunk it?
You mentioned it being easy, right, and simple here in kind of analyzing what's going on with the Grizzlies with Ja's return. But sometimes. But what you talk about things looking easy. What Ja makes look easy is some of these, like the toughness on some of these plays. The game winner at the end of that first game back against the Pelicans. His ability, his poise, his body control, gets to the exact spot on the court that he wants to. What is it about those moments that seems to, like, that Ja seems to thrive in almost?
And against one of the best one-on-one defenders in the NBA, and Herb Jones, he did that. And he did it to him, I think it was 3 times in the last 90 seconds of the game in a clutch kind of situation. Only Luka Doncic has done something similar in the last 5 years. I wish I knew exactly where I got that stat. I apologize. But I know it's out there. I saw it numerous times. I think that what is the most fun thing about watching Ja is you literally expect anything to happen, right? He has this control of his body that someone that moves as quickly as he does should not have. Like, there's guys in the NBA that are almost as fast as Ja Morant, right? They can run up and down the floor with him. we're talking about the most elite athletes in the world that are professional basketball players, at least in my opinion. So there's guys that can run with him. The fact that he can do it while handling the basketball, while making moves on top of moves, he did something to Herb Jones that I'm not sure there's any other player in the NBA that can do in terms of coming back across his body on that game-winning shot. Jones played it the way you're supposed to if you watch the NBA like you and I do, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers do. You know, he was defending what normal NBA players do in terms of those types of dribble penetration moves down the center of the lane. Morant came back across the body in a way that I don't think anybody else can do. He is that quick. He is that elusive with his movements. He is someone who is impossible to game plan for other than going under screens and making him shoot threes. If he ever figures out that part, he's unguardable, right? That's kind of the difference between him and a Luka Doncic and those types of guys right now, is he doesn't have that three-point shot consistently. But he isn't just an athlete. Again, the NBA has a ton of athletes. He has an underrated handle. He has an underrated ability to create shots for others. And he does things with the ball in his hands that very few people in this league and on this planet can do.
I know you mentioned, briefly there, what Ja does for Desmond Bane, for Triple J now that he's back. But who would you say benefits the absolute most from Ja's return to the lineup?
Desmond Bane. I think Desmond Bane does, because Jaren Jackson Jr. is 6'11", 250 pounds. He's leading the league in isolation scoring per possession, I believe. And he is a physical freak. Like, he is Giannis light. And again, Joe thinks Jaren's Giannis. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. I'm acknowledging that Giannis is better than Jaren. He's a tier or two down, but he's unguardable because of how he can handle how big he is. He's going to have a mismatch in almost every single game he plays against guys like Giannis. I think Bane benefits. He has such an impressive bag of tricks offensively now. Again, another guy with an underrated handle. He has gotten quicker over the last few years. He has been more decisive with his downhill movements to the basket. He's not just a three-point shooter. He's evolved in that way. But he doesn't have that elite athleticism that if you're the number one target of an opposing defense, he's going to get slowed at times. He's just going to. He doesn't have that length. He doesn't have that ability to rise above the rim and force teams, even when they're defending him well, to not be able to defend him just because he's that athletic. So I think it's Bane, because now he's got even more room to operate. Again, he has an extensive basketball skill set at his disposal. He just can't always finish when he's the main priority against a long defender, for example. Now Morant's going to draw that assignment, and unless you have numerous dudes like that, like in fairness the Pelicans do have, unless you have numerous guys like that, it's going to be curtains for your defense. And the Atlanta Hawks found that out on Saturday night to the tune of 67 combined from Bane and Morant. For my money, they're the best backcourt in the NBA. Especially if you want to include young backcourt. But I think they're the best, period, because offensively, at least, they complement each other just almost perfectly.
You at least hinted at maybe a couple of these things here, but I'm curious, what are some of the things that Ja brings to the table for this Grizzlies team that don't necessarily show up in the box score, that you have to really be watching and paying attention to, throughout the course of a 48-minute game?
Well, his defensive energy is better than he gets credit for. At least it has been these last three games. And, I don't want to make it sound like I think he's an above average defender, because he's not. The goal for Morant has always been to be an average defender, because his offense is so elite that he's not bringing about negativity at any point on the basketball floor. These first three games for him, at least, he has been much better defensively. There was a questionable goaltending call on the Saturday game. It wasn't called for goaltending. Maybe it could have been. But the fact that Morant had a chase down block in the first place, numerous steals in these first three games, attacking passing lanes, he is doing a better job of showing effort and energy. He seems to be in the best shape of his career, to be honest with you. His wind has been impressive. He's giving a hell of a lot of effort, and he's doing it on both ends of the floor. But as silly as it's going to sound, and again, we have a job here to do in terms of analyzing basketball. Sometimes it's just as simple as being out there and being that dude, right? And if you've ever played sports before, if you've ever been in that environment, and you have a guy on your team that just goes out there and, oh, hell, you guys are screwed now, right? Like that, there's something to that. Even if you are a multimillionaire professional athlete who maybe it shouldn't be that way mentally, but these guys have played basketball their entire lives since they were children all the way to now. And at every level of basketball, a lot of times it's been them, right? A lot of times it was Jaren Jackson that was that dude. But now he's on a team and he sees this guy get on the floor, and it immediately raises his ability and confidence because he's seen Ja Morant do amazing things to help the Memphis Grizzlies win. And seeing is believing, both in basketball and in life. They know what this man is capable of. And because of that, they think they have a better chance to win now than they did this time last week. And that speaks volumes for a team's confidence.
Grizzlies are 3-0 since Ja Morant's return, now 9-19 on the season, sitting 10 games under 500, and they still have an injury report long enough to field a 5-man lineup and a 6th man on top of it. No John Conchar, Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard, Derrick Rose, Brandon Clark, and of course Steven Adams. So how far will this Grizzlies team ultimately go this season? What will they look like when they're ultimately fully healthy? You'll have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Grizzlies. Joe, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Of course, buddy. Thanks to you and yours. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to everybody out there. Thanks for hanging out with us here on Locked On. It's appreciated.